Hello. Our TED Talk was What Really Motivates People to Be Honest in Business by Misael Garcia, Jamar Davis, Demi Mendoza, and Cassidy Long. We're going to start off with an example of dishonesty in the workplace, and this was done by me, Misael Garcia. One of the biggest dishonesties that has been committed in America was done by Enron Corporation. Enron was founded in 1985. It was based in Houston, Texas, and they offered energy, commodities, and different types of services. Enron was named the sixth largest energy company in the world at the time. It was number seven on Fortune 500 list, and their shares were worth $90.75 at their peak. So as you can see, Enron was a big company. It was a big corporation. They were making a lot of money, according to them, and people were investing a lot of money in this company because of their trends, and it just seemed to keep growing and growing. But Enron committed many dishonesties and frauds in the years that they were active. Um, they lied about um, the billions that they were in debt, billions of dollars in debt and losses, and they covered it by using accounting loopholes, purpose entities, and poor financial reporting. They did this by working with Arthur Anderson, the auditing company. They helped them hide all the debt and losses. Um, and once the shareholders found out, they filed a lawsuit that caused the shares to drop immediately from in a few days to 67 cents. They went from 90 plus dollars to 67 cents in a few days. Um, the consequences of Enron's dishonesty. So after Enron filed bankruptcy, um, 4,500 employees lost their jobs. Investors lost nearly $60 billion. Pension funds, which is Social Security money and 401ks, for employees, they were obliterated. They were done. Most executives were imprisoned. The CEO, the CFO, the founder. Arthur Anderson lost accreditation. Of course, nobody's gonna want to work with them. Once they found out that they were hiding all these things for Enron, and one of the big things is the accounting policies have had to be revised. Um, Obviously, they weren't working because Enron was able to do all this commit all this fraud. Um, so those were some consequences, some things that happened because of Enron's fraud and dishonesty. Um, Up next, I'm gonna show you a video that talks a little bit more about Enron.
It had taken Enron 16 years to go from about 10 billion of assets to 65 billion of assets, and took them 24 days to go bankrupt.
Just an immediate sense of outrage at Lay and Skilling and Fastow when people realized how much they had profited and how completely artificial the appearance of this company had been.
That nobody could really understand, and in fact that many of Kenway's lieutenants questioned. They said this business can't be making this much money legitimately. Something weird is going on.
Mark-to-market accounting allowed Enron to book potential future profits on the very day a deal was signed. No matter how little cash actually came in the door, to the outside world, Enron's profits could be whatever Enron said they were.
Things that fascinated me was that almost all of the Wall Street analysts who covered Enron had buy ratings or strong buy ratings on the company's stock.
One analyst who didn't buy the company line became an enemy of Enron. Enron's CFO, Andy Fastow, had his eye on John Olson, one of the only analysts skeptical of the Enron story.
Enron loved analyst strong buy recommendations.
Merrill was informed by Fastow, either you get somebody who is on board with us and has a strong buy recommendation and loves us at the same time, or we don't do any business with you.
Merrill Lynch fired John Olson. Soon after, Fastow rewarded the bank with 2 investment banking jobs worth $50 million. His job was to cover up the fact that Enron was becoming a financial fantasy land. To please the boss, Fastow had to figure out a way to keep the stock price up by hiding the fact that Enron was $30 billion in debt. Enron was just stashing its debt in Fastow's companies where investors couldn't see it. LJM was Fastow's most ambitious creation. It would work magic for Enron, and it would allow Fastow to conjure $45 million for himself. Returns that would exceed 2,000%. 96 individual bankers invested in LJM, and America's major banks put up as much as $25 million each.
The Enron fraud is the story of synergistic corruption. There are supposed to be checks and balances in the system. The lawyers are supposed to say no. The accountants are supposed to say no. The bankers are supposed to say no, but no one who was supposed to say no said no. They all took their share of the money from the fraud and put it in their pockets.
Enron paid its advisors well. In 2001, the accounting firm Arthur Andersen received $1 million a week. Enron's law firm, Vinson & Elkins, did nearly as well.
Oh, for instance, one email I remember where the banker writes, Enron loves these deals. They produce cash, but they don't have to show the debt on the balance sheet. Now, a high school student can figure out that the banks were all knowing participants in this wrongdoing.
Merrill Lynch assisted Enron in cooking its books by pretending to purchase an existing Enron asset when it was really engaged in a loan.
California was selected by Enron as the prime place to experiment with this new concept of deregulated electricity.
Commodity that normally trades in the $35 to $45 range, high prices are when it gets in the 50s or $1,000.
Prices aren't going to stay at $1,000 forever. If we out the weak people in the market, get rid of them, and you know what? The people who are strong stick around.
Traders soon discovered that by shutting down power plants, they could create artificial shortages that would push prices.
Guys to get a little creative,
okay,
and come up with a reason to go down.
Like a forced outage type thing.
Right.
West Coast traders made nearly $2 billion for Enron.
The differences between the state of California and the Titanic. At least when the Titanic went down, the lights were on.
In 2001, less than 4 months after Skilling's resignation, Enron declared bankruptcy. His accounting firm, Arthur Andersen, had begun destroying its Enron files. Enron's accounting firm, Arthur Andersen, was convicted of obstructing justice. With its reputation for honesty destroyed, America's oldest accounting firm fell along with Enron, and 29,000 people lost their jobs.
So as you can see there, there's a lot of lessons that can be learned just from that one scenario, that one thing that happened, that fraud. It teaches us a lot. But one of the things that stood out to me was that there will always be temptations such as money that will motivate people to be dishonest. But we need to make sure our decisions align with our values, which we're going to talk about in the next few slides, and ethics. We also need to make sure that our employees are motivated by things such as incentives. We're also going to talk about that in order to create an honest work environment.
My name is Jamar Davis, and I will be speaking about values. Protected values, or sacred values, are values that resist trade-offs with other values, particularly economic values. Examples of things people won't do because of their protected values are things like lying, stealing, killing, or maybe even robbing. One thing mentioned in the TED Talk presentation that my group watched was protected values. Alexander Wagner put a big emphasis on it. Alexander Wagner is the creator of the TED Talk that we watched, and he did a great job explaining why people behave the way they do in business or in life. There are a few factors that help influence behavior of people in life or in business. Protected values is more of an ethical factor that helps people make decisions. Protected values are those that resist trade-offs with other values, particularly economic values. These are values that you feel you have a moral obligation to uphold. People most often resist trading off protected values with compensatory values, such as their value for money. A protected value could be something like stealing or killing, and people usually want protected values to overthrow or trump any decision involving conflict between a protected and a compensatory value. Protected values seem almost impossible for individuals to satisfy, especially for business and agencies that try to satisfy the values of many people. Someone's wrong or right about a situation may not be the same wrong or right for the next person. Stealing or fraud may be a sacred value that someone vows never to do in life or in business. However, the person in the cubicle across the room may not see much wrong with stealing or committing fraud, as long as it's a little or not done to them. The values a person holds reflects the behavior that they give off towards others or in general.
Hi, my name is Demi. I'll be talking about how incentives really motivate employees to be honest. The definition of an incentive. My personal definition is a reward given from an employer or a company to an employee that motivates them to reach a certain goal or quota. So all an incentive is something that will motivate your employee to reach a certain number of sales per month, or maybe get people to sign up for a reward program or get certain emails. And that's all it's said to be, enhance their performance and make the company look good, and obviously make themselves look good because they're getting something out of it. It's not like they're just doing for their employer, not getting anything out of it. You want to make sure that when you motivate them, you're giving that positive influence out to them, and that when they reach that certain goal, they feel good about themselves. And that honestly just brings a certain trust and honor between the company and the employee. Incentives keep employees motivated. Like I said, it could be a bonus, it could be a paid vacation, it could be also a managerial position. When employees work toward these goals and they make it happen, you want to show them that you're proud and that the company appreciates them. So by this, you're actually building a bond between the company and the employee, and I said on the right corner, therefore faithful employees. So when you motivate them, that obviously leads to success. When when there's success and they see that their dreams are happening, you're faithful toward that because it works. The plan. That you can trust your employer, you can trust your coworkers. So just incentives are said to be positive. They're said to be bring a great bond between the company and the employee. But we want to know why incentives ensure honesty. Just because you give someone a prize doesn't mean they're going to be honest. But it all comes down to the code of conduct. So when you first sign up for a job and you get hired and you say yes, you approve for the job, you sign a code of conduct. So when you sign a code of conduct, this is saying that everything that you see that happens in the company is going to be confidential. And then this also brings integrity into play because you want to make sure that you are always going to do the right thing. And then professionalism comes to play because, obviously we do build bonds as coworkers and, between your employer, but you want to make sure that, it stays professional because this code of conduct is very important to the company and to you. You want to make sure you follow these guidelines and that, it's just success is coming between the company and yourself. That's why in the top left corner, I put partnership built on trust because yes, everything's, you work as a team, you work together, but you also want to build a trust between you and your coworkers and in your employer. And then this is showing loyalty toward your employer. And this also comes down to protected values. Your own personal values are the ones that are going to show what kind of team player you are and it honestly just comes down to your personal beliefs and how honest and faithful you're toward the company or your employers are toward you.
Hey there, this is Cassidy Long, and this part of our slideshow goes over the research that was being conducted during our TED Talk. The first thing we want to go over is heads or tails. Research was conducted during our TED Talk that tested people's honesty. Participants took part in the survey where they were completely alone and had to input into a machine how many times they flipped a coin and it landed on tails. Every time the coin landed on tails, they would get paid. So this was testing their honesty because nobody was around to make sure they were telling the truth. They could have put they got tails when they really got heads and they would still get paid. The results were tested beforehand to see the odds and possibilities of actually the coin landing on tails. The results came back showing that about 37.5% of people who took part in the survey had about 2 fair coin tosses. And then another research project they went over was using a dog and sausage on top of a shelf. For example, an example that was used during our TED Talk of a dog trying to get food off of the shelf. The speaker talks about the satisfaction of the ending product when getting something accomplished the correct way compared to the satisfaction with the product when getting it in a dishonest way. It is said that when you get the product the correct way, you'll feel better about it compared to getting it the dishonest way and feeling guilty or differently about it when you receive it. Reason being because if you were to get it in a dishonest way, you're still going to have that on your conscience and you're not going to like work harder for it, and you didn't earn it the correct way. As to actually earning it the correct way, you're going to feel good and accomplished for actually achieving whatever it is. And lastly, we're going to close it off with our 2 questions. Number 1 being relating back to the Enron scandal. If you were the auditor in charge of their books, would you whistleblow and risk your job to make sure they get caught? Or would you keep quiet and allow them to continue fraud? Number 2, based on the What Really Motivates People to Be Honest in Business TED Talk and our group presentation, how likely are you to be honest with a minor issue versus a major issue in business? I'll give you a few minutes to think, and we just want to thank you for listening to us. Thank you.